Hi guys, Debbie here. I'm just getting ready to do a shirt and I've had a lot of people asking for tutorials on sublimation, and so I thought this would be a good chance to show you how to press a sublimation transfer on a t-shirt or a tank top, or for the most part any fabrics, but the t-shirts seem to be kind of the trickier ones, and there's a few little tricks that I've learned that make it a little easier. So we're going to start on the computer just to show you some print settings and how to set it up, and then we'll go from there. Okay, so we're starting on the computer, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up a new document and show you right from the beginning on how to set it up in case this is the very first time you're printing a transfer. I use Silhouette Studio, so there'd be a whole different set of steps if you're wanting to print with different software. But basically when you open it, chances are it's going to look like this with your mat there, and probably not that. So you open it up and it's going to look like this. What we want to do is drag in the design. So I'm doing a buffalo plaid mama bear tank top, and I want the ping file, so if it'll load and tell me what that is. Well, I'm thinking this one's, yeah. So the ping files have transparent backgrounds, and that's ideal. That there's usually JPEGs available too, but the white background sometimes can be a different color and you don't even realize it. Just barely tinted a different color, and then it'll print with a different color. So the transparent backgrounds are really the ones that you want, and they should be a minimum resolution of 300 dpi, which is dots per inch, and that's the resolution. Anything less than that, I mean 240 is probably okay, but less than that you're going to start to see a pretty big reduction in quality. But you just drag the design right into Silhouette Studio, and then you want to set it up to print because we're not cutting with it. So this, when I do these tank tops, I've done enough of them that I do them all 11 inches wide. So if you come over here to the transform panel and then this little diagonal arrow looking thing, it'll let you select on the graphic and then change the size. So you hit the little lock aspect ratio and you change the width to 11 inches. And then we're going to go back to the page setup. I'm going to turn the cutting mat off. I mean, it really isn't a big deal if it's on, but it just bugs me. And then we're going to turn the cut border off, but show print border is a big deal because it's going to tell you if it's going to print. Like right now, if I printed this, see the line, this stuff outside that border won't print. Even if your paper has plenty of space, it will not print if it's outside that border. So the border is going to tell you if you've got some sort of print settings that are not set up the way that you want. Now, since this is 11 inches wide, I need to do it on a 13 by 19 sheet of paper so that it does the whole thing. Because an 8.5 by 11, the print border goes in just a little bit, and so I can't actually make it the full 11. And I actually wanted to show you how to print on a scrap anyway, so we're going to set it up for 13 by 19. I only keep 13 by 19 and 8.5 by 11 sublimation paper. That's the only sizes that I buy. I just haven't had the need to get anything in between, but there's lots of different sizes that you can get. But set it to 13 by 19, and then we want to fix this border right here. So we're not going to print it yet, but go up to File, Print, and make sure you choose your printer. So I have the WF-7720, and then you go into Preferences, and I have some presets saved, so I can just come in here and click on 13 by 19 and it'll have everything that I want. But I'll walk you through how to do it. So I always print out a paper cassette 1 just because the settings that I use aren't available on paper cassette 2. The premium presentation mat, if I change this to number 2 and went to the type, the premium presentation mat isn't an option. So I put it on cassette 1. I choose the paper size, so 13 by 19. I do it portrait, but obviously you could change that to whatever you need. And then you go to your paper type and go Premium Presentation Paper Matte, and then go into Quality and hit High. And I think that's it for this tab. The borderless I don't turn on. One, it pops up with a warning and says that the quality might not be as good around the edges. But the issue that I've run into is the sizing tends to be off a little bit. And I do print and cut sometimes, or I do it alongside vinyl. And I want to make sure that it's exactly the size that it should be. And when I print borderless, it seems to stretch it or something. So I keep borderless turned off. So that's why there's this little line here that doesn't go all the way to the edge of the paper. And why I'm doing this on a bigger sheet, which I can obviously shrink it down a little bit more, but I'm just showing you this way anyway. So second tab, this document size is going to just automatically match what you had on the first tab. Color correction, you want to go into advanced and hit ICM. That's like the internal color profile for the printer itself. So it's just the default. It's going to let it use the settings that Epson has set for the printer without having any special changes being made by the software. So turn on ICM, and then down here, turn off high speed and turn on mirror image. By turning on mirror image, it's going to automatically mirror it for you, so you don't have to do it. You never have to worry about forgetting to mirror. And with sublimation, it needs to be mirrored because you put the design face down onto whatever you're putting it on. And so if you don't mirror it, everything will be backwards. So highly suggest clicking that and saving a preset. So the preset, you can come in here, add, remove presets. And once you have everything set on that screen, you could just give it a name and hit save. I already have some in here. But then that just makes life a lot easier for you. So 13 by 19 Cosmos. That's the ink that I use. I did have different ink, and so I started saving them with Cosmos so I know which ink, because some of the settings were different with different inks. So if you don't use Cosmos ink, do some tests. Walmart has fabric for $1.99 a yard, 100% polyester. I've done hundreds and hundreds of tests. Compare and write it down very carefully and figure out what setting works best for your ink. But for the Cosmos, this was definitely the best for shirts. Now, I changed it up a little bit for mugs, but fabrics and stuff, the Premium Presentation Matte. So anyway, you hit OK, when you hit apply, but then you hit cancel. Don't hit print yet. So hit cancel, and if you look, you see that the print border changed. That's what you need to look for. If you did something wrong in those settings, and that print border isn't lining up like this, you need to go back and look at them again. This is basically, the print border is going to tell you if something's messed up, and it happens. So I highly suggest turning that on. So we have the design, and I'm just going to go all the way up. See, zoom in a little. Just inch it up to the edge here, and because I'm kind of OCD, I'm going to hit the center button so that it's centered on the paper nice and even, and it just makes placement easier when you're doing the shirt. So I'm centering it, and there. It's good. That's how I want it. So we're going to go back to File and Print and hit Print, except I'm going to show you how to set up the printer first. Then I'll hit Print. Okay, now we need to set up the printer to make sure that it's doing what it should in order to be printing the right thing that the computer is going to be sending it. So by default, the tray is all closed up. So you need to, since we're doing the bigger sheet of paper, pull it out, and there's a blue tab over here. Pull the tab, and it'll let you extend the whole thing out. Then you need to have this one pushed back, and this one pushed all the way back, so you have the full tray size for the 13 by 19 paper. If you're using a different size, just look at the lines on here and line them up accordingly. Now, I'm not actually going to put 13 by 19 in here because I am going to print on a scrap, because a lot of people have asked me that, so we're dual purposing this little. This is 13 inches wide, but I cut it off. It was probably a pillow. I have a lot of squares where I pull off the sides. I just cut them. So I'm going to use a scrap, and you just push it all the way up where the paper would be, and you make sure your design is up on the top of the paper so it prints first, and then the rest of it's blank. The printer will just push it out. It's blank, there's nothing it's trying to do there. Just make sure there's no design that's going to go down beyond where there's no paper. And I'm using a sub paper. I get it on Amazon. It works great. And there's a pattern on the back. So you want to print on the white side. So you put it face down. You should see the pattern. Then you know you have it loaded right. Then push it in. And you need to tell the printer what size you're loading. Don't tell them it's a scrap. Just put 13 by 19 in here. So 13 by 19 is actually called Super B or A3 Plus. So for paper size, you choose that, and for paper type, you choose Premium Matte, and it's actually already up on my screen. And I have it saved as a favorite paper setting. If you want to save it, go into favorite paper settings, choose which setting number you want, and then you'd hit edit and go in and choose everything, and then hit save. But I already have mine all stored, so I'm not going to do that. But I'd choose Super B Premium Matte and hit use, and it'll pull those settings in. Then you hit close, and you're good to go. I pull this out because otherwise it goes flying across the room. I have my printer up on a big tall dresser. It's the only place I have room for this giant printer. But pull this out, and then it'll catch it for you. There's a little lid that comes with these. I took them off the first day I started printing. It's not necessary, and it was just driving me nuts having to take off the lid and put it back on. So I keep the lid off, pull that out, go over to either a printer and hit print. Okay, so the transfer's printed. What I like to do, now I know I centered it on the page, so I'm not really going to worry about the left and right side, but just to show you guys, I usually cut it out as close to the design as possible so it's easier to line up on the shirt. And I mean, you can kind of see through the paper a little bit, but sometimes it's just a little bit tricky. So just for helping with placement, I'm going to cut off the extra on the bottom just so it doesn't kind of mess with my alignment. So what I usually try to do is see the space that I have over here and match it over here with whatever is the lowest part. So something like that. And I just cut it. I try not to put my ruler over that so I don't scratch the transfer itself. And like I said, I centered it in the software, so I'm not going to worry about trimming the right and the left. But if it wasn't centered, I would trim both sides too. Okay, so one more thing I wanted to mention real quick. Make sure that you lint roller your shirt really well. There's lint that gets on it in the factory or shipping or whatever, and you can't even see it, but it will show up blue when you press it, and it's bad. So lint brush, or lint roller the front, lint roller the back. Go through a few sheets if you have to, just to be extra careful that you don't get any of those little blue flecks on there. And one more thing I just thought of about the transfers. I cut mine in squares like I showed you. If you still have issues with the square of the paper showing up on the shirt, you could try tearing the design out, and it gives you kind of more of a feathered line that's a lot less noticeable on the shirt. I haven't had to do that, and honestly I don't like doing that because I feel like I can't get it lined up as well. And I got my pressure settings to where I don't have that problem. But if you still have that problem, try the tearing out thing. That seems to work really well for people. As far as the alignment, I've heard some people will take a ruler or a square and put like a plus sign or a big T on the back of the transfer really lightly in pencil. So when you tear it, you at least know how to get it level and where the center is. But again, I don't have to do that. the foam kind of solved the problem for me. But if you still have that issue, it's just an idea for you to try. Okay, so now we can move on to the actual shirt process. I do all my shirts and fabrics, for the most part, 400 degrees for 60 seconds. I highly suggest checking the temperature of your press. This beast, for example, is like 25 degrees too hot. So I have all these little notes written on a piece of paper on the wall. To get it to 400 degrees, I have to set it to 377. So don't be confused by that. You need it to be 400 degrees. But little infrared thermometer works great. Make sure your platen is bare. If you have Teflon on the top, it won't read it correctly. And you just aim it and press the button. So it says 396. $3.99. So it just kind of depends. This one is so big, and honestly, it's a China piece of crap, but it gets the job done. But depending on where you shoot the thermometer on the platen, the temperature is going to be a little bit different here and there. But this one, it was $3.99 right in the middle, so we're going to go with that. Now, I use foam for all my shirts. I have a couple different sizes. I have a whole stack of them. I just cut them with scissors. I got this on Amazon. I think I've heard Joann's, really any craft store should have some foam. But the foam gives it a nice soft backing so that you can get even pressure without having to do super high pressure, and it helps allow for seams and stuff like that. Now, even with paper underneath, I've stained all of them. Just the ink that bleeds through. Some things are worse than others. This is from black sequin pillow, and I had a sheet of butcher paper underneath, and it still did that. So now I always make sure that I kind of press it for a little bit to try to get as much ink off of it as I can, and then I always put paper underneath, if for no other reason than to protect what you're pressing. So for this, this little foam pad is big enough to cover the whole design. So I'm going to use the smaller one because then I could leave the seams to be off of the pad, and then the shirt doesn't get quite so smashed. Sometimes you could see the back part of the tank top pressed into the front part of the tank top, and so the smaller one works better. But I just wanted to show you, I have a full-size one. Sequin pillows I do on this full one, regular pillowcases, waffle weave towels. Pretty much everything else goes on this bigger one, and I never adjust the pressure on this press, and I never change the temperature. I have another heat press that is a swing away, and it's a lot easier to tweak the pressure on it. This one is just a little bit, I had to add washers to the front part so that it would allow room and still be level with a foam pad. So, long story short, I would recommend getting a nice heat press, but this works. It's a 16 by 24, and I wanted the biggest one that I can afford, and this is what it was. But anyway, so I'm going to take this one off. I never press without this, because this press is all just, I use fabrics, and so I always use with the foam pad. So, what you want to do first is get some butcher paper to go on the bottom. I'm sorry, you're seeing my back, but this is a big, giant roll of butcher paper that I got from Sam's Club. It's like, I think it was like 20 bucks. But I cut a piece that's big enough to cover the whole bottom platen. And you can reuse this. I got ink on the last one, so I threw it away, but I'm just doing a new one for now. I'm going to pull this forward a little bit just so the tank top straps can drop back there past the foam, and put the foam down. Then I'm going to get another one to cover the top to protect the shirt itself so it doesn't get scorched. So I have two. Then, get that out of the way. The very first thing I do is I pre-press the shirt. It gets out any initial moisture. So I'm going to take the tank top. Try not to burn your knuckles. I really do like my swing away. If you can afford a really big swing away, get a swing away. But this works. So I'm just pushing those down. So my seams, I know you can't see this, but right here is the edge of the foam. So these seams from the tank top are up above it, so they're not going to get smashed by the press. Then I take a piece of butcher paper, and I put it over it, and I just press it for a second. Well, not a second, but a few seconds. Then I pull it out and set it aside. And I spray adhesive on the transfer. Now there's a little bit of a learning curve with this, so I'm going to show you how to do it. This is my super high-tech adhesive spraying box. I just use it over and over again. I put it like this on the bottom, and so when I'm not using it, I just fold it back up and tuck it in the corner. I think my kids labeled it sticky box. So anyway, put the transfer inside the box, and this is the spray adhesive that I have found works the best, at least for me. I know that Condi sells a spray, but their shipping was outrageous. This was like 20 bucks at Michael's, but you can use their 40% off coupon code, so it makes it a little bit more reasonable. But the trick is, one, use the box, then you could be a little bit more flowy with it, not worry about making a mess. You don't have to be as careful. But there's a little black mark on the lid. Make sure it's aimed that way, and it will get gummy after every time you use it. So I take an alcohol swab, which I keep a bunch of them on my windowsill here, and clean that tip so that it sprays a nice fine mist. If you don't clean that tip, you don't have it aimed right, it'll start to kind of drip, and those drips will wreck your transfer. So you can actually see it and know before you press it if you wrecked it. And I've done it. I didn't clean it because there was only 10 minutes since I sprayed the last one, and it messed it up. So I clean the tip. I have the transfer inside the box. I usually, well, shake it up. I usually do a little test spray just on the side to make sure I'm getting a nice good mist. And then you just kind of make a cloud inside. See, you can see the fog. I probably should have the window open, but the kids are outside playing, being loud, and so it's like 100 degrees in here. But that's all I do for spraying. So you pull it out and look at it. If there's drips on the design, those drips will show up when you press it. So look at it and make sure that everything looks like it's got a nice fine mist before you waste a shirt, because it happens. I've done it. Just something to keep in mind. So I'm moving my sticky box, and I'm not sure how well you could see this here. Let's see. Okay, so we're going back to the shirt. So we pre-pressed it. It's sitting here looking all pretty. Quick thing about sizing. I have yet to find some cheat sheet size chart that just tells you what size to make the transfer. I measure every single one and just kind of get an idea. So I thermometer over here. I look at ruler. I look at my ruler. I did this 11 inches. I've already done this, but I'm just showing you. I lay it down on the shirt and I see where 11 inches would hit and know it's, you know, probably 5 inches tall, and just kind of eyeball it, and that's how I decide what size to make it. But then I save it, so I don't have to think that through every time I do the shirt. So, there's a hair on my adhesive, not that that matters, but anyway. So take your nice sticky adhesive, transfer, and so I'm big on eyeballing. If you want to fold the shirt in half to get like a center line and put a careful crease, whatever, rulers, T-squares, there's all kinds of tricks, but I just eyeball it. And another reason why it's kind of nice to keep the extra edges on, there's less gap on the side, so it's a little bit easier to line up. But I usually go a couple inches down from the neck of the shirt, and I look up here, these corners, so it looks even. And then I look at it from top to bottom. Okay, I really don't like picking that up once I put it down, but the shirt's actually going to my sister-in-law, and I don't want to mess it up. So, okay, that looks good to me. So here's the really important parts that'll keep you from messing up a shirt. You got to put paper inside the shirt, on top of the shirt, and under the shirt, because it could, depending on the design, the ink could bleed through the shirt onto the back. And I actually like to try to save these big pieces, so I put paper underneath it as well so that the ink doesn't get on this big sheet. I have a stack of legal paper and regular letter size copy paper. And that's what I use over and over again because it's cheap and it's easy and I don't have to cut it. So I take my legal paper and I put one on the press where the design is going to be. I kind of move it around as I need to. I put one inside the shirt. So this is another reason why I really like the spray adhesive, is it'll stay put while you kind of mess around with it. And you can line it up on the table and move it to the press when you're done. It stays where you need it to. There is adhesive tape, high heat tape, but this big press creates like a suction every time I open it. And even with the tape, I couldn't get it to not move a little bit. And once I got the spray adhesive down, I'm sold. Okay, so I can actually feel the paper through the shirt. You can pick it up and sometimes see it a little bit better. But you just want to make sure that the paper is covering up so you don't send it through to the back, because I've done that. And then I get it as flat as I can. And I grab, you can feel the paper on the inside and the paper on top. I just grab both and I pick it up and I move it over here to the press. Which I hate this part, constantly fumbling. So I'm feeling for that foam again, trying to get this stuff not getting smushed. But make sure that the foam is underneath your whole design, because otherwise it won't press. You need to have good contact. What are we doing here? Okay. Then legal paper over the top, so it saves this big giant piece of paper. I just don't want to waste any more paper than I have to. Cover the whole thing. Now remember, 400 degrees, 60 seconds. But depending on your shirt, you might want to, you might have to adjust that a little bit. But I've done this shirt. I did this exact one yesterday, so I know that this works. So cover the whole thing. The paper just kind of helps protect the shirt a little bit. If you have a really shiny polyester shirt, you could put 2 or 3 sheets of butcher paper on there and it can help it a little bit. But this press has a timer built in on it. You just close it and it starts counting. But one last thing before I put it down, have a lint roller handy and you'll see why. Okay, so now we're gonna press it. Okay, so when the timer goes off, lift it slowly because it's gonna want to try to suck your paper up and make a big mess. Pull off your top sheet and don't panic here. You're not in a hurry. Do this carefully. It's okay if it sits on here for a second, even if you want to let it cool. You don't have to like be in a panic to rip it off. So I'm gonna pull this off. Recycle bin. My recycle bin gets filled up like every day. Okay, so peeling. This is important. Now I know we have spray adhesive, but if for some reason you don't get enough on there or whatever, it can still shift. So just be careful in every step of the way when doing shirts. I put my hand, now it's hot, but it's not too hot. My fingernails, I kind of use my fingernails so I don't burn my fingers. But I hold it a little bit in place while I grab the corner with my finger. And then I peel it. It just makes sure it doesn't shift while you're doing it. Right when you get it out, I pull it off. I pull the paper out. Now I should have done this faster, but again, this is a really forgiving shirt. Some shirts are not as forgiving. But while it's hot, lint roller the crap out of it. So this one, like I said, I've got the pressure down really good, and this shirt, oh, dang it. Stupid lint roller. This shirt is really forgiving. That's why I like doing these ones so much. But white especially, it just seems to be harder. But if you lint roller it really well, and I'll do a video on towels, that's where you see the biggest difference are towels. But it helps lift up those fibers while it's hot so that they're not so melted down. And then shake it out really good, and that helps too. But really, this shirt, this one is so easy. This is a thread fast apparel blizzard tank. This is silver, and down here is white blizzard. They're my favorite. Super easy to do. But anyway, oh, turn this press off. That's it. And look at how good those colors look. So I've done tests on all the paper settings and stuff, and the premium presentation matte rocks. Now the Cosmos ink rocks too, so that helps. I used to use a different brand, and I won't name it because there's some people who love it, but the blacks were kind of blue, and the colors were just kind of randomly off. Some would be awesome, and some wouldn't be so awesome. So anyway, that's it, beginning to end, on how to sublimate a t-shirt. Just don't rush through it and practice. But there's just a lot of little steps, and I've wrecked all of them. Missed paper underneath, missed part of the platen, and so the design was cut off. That's why I went for a really big press, because it makes life easier in that aspect. But that's it, and it's right in the fibers of the shirt. It's smooth. You know, it works awesome. This is actually an SVG file, and I went through and made some versions with buffalo plaid, and I got like a grunge one or something, and I can get links to all of those. Feel free to ask. I can get you links for the tank tops, the paper, the ink, any of it. So let me know if you have any questions, and hopefully this helps some of you. Thanks.